Today, what we're going to do is going to be talking a little bit about the death of Lazarus, or the Lazarus resurrection, which is on the chapter of the Gospel of John, on chapter 11. We're going to be taking a look on the passage itself and how it is in the Gospel, and we're going to be making some comments under the Spiritist perspective to try to understand a little bit better what happened over there and what is the message that Christ had brought to us under that passage. It's important to remind you as well that every and single act, every single word of Jesus during his 3 years of work on earth had a purpose, had a target, had an objective. Someone like him, with the power and the knowledge that he has, he wouldn't be doing things on earth by chance. Just because he saw someone that was blind over there, oh, let me just cure the blind man over there because I'm a nice guy. No, very far away from that. Everything that Jesus did on earth had a purpose and had a message behind it. What we're trying to do as we evolve is trying to understand what is the message that Jesus has to all of us on his teachings. But anyways, let's go to the passage. I'm not going to be reading the entire passage because, Susanna is very strict to the timing, and she already said to me, you have until 10:50 and you better get out of the podium by then. So I'm just going to read a few passages over here. So the passage starts like that on the Gospel of John, the death of Lazarus. Now a man named Lazarus was sick. He was from Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. So the sister sent out the word to Jesus, Lord, the one you love is sick. When he heard this, Jesus said, the sickness will not end in death. No, it is for God's glory, so that God's Son may be glorified through it. So when he heard that Lazarus was sick, he stayed where he was for 2 more days. After he had said this, he went on tell to then all of the disciples which were working with them on a different place at the time. Our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I'm going there to wake him up. So then he told them plainly, Lazarus is dead, and for your sake I'm glad I was not there, so you may believe. But let us go to him. And Jesus then comforts the sisters of Lazarus. On his arrival, Jesus found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went out to meet him, but Mary stayed at home. Lord, Martha said to Jesus, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But I know that even now, God will give you whatever you ask. Jesus said to her, your brother will rise again. After she had said this, she went back and called her sister Mary aside. And she said, the teacher is here, and he's asking for you. When Mary heard this, she got up quickly and went to see him. She went to see Jesus as well. When Mary reached the place where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet and said, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. And then Jesus asked to them, where have you laid him? Come and see, Lord, they replied. So then Jesus finally raises Lazarus from the dead. Jesus, once more deeply moved, came to the tomb. It was a cave with a stone laid across the entrance. Take away the stone, he said. But Lord, said Martha, the sister of the dead man, by this time there is a bad odor, for he has been there for 4 days. Then Jesus said, did I not tell you that if you believe, you see the glory of God? So they took away the stone. Then Jesus looked up and said, Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I knew that you always hear me, but I said this for the benefit of the people standing here, that they might believe that you sent me. When he said this, Jesus called in a loud voice, Lazarus, come out. The dead man came out, his hands and feet wrapped with the strips of linen and a cloth around his face. Jesus said to them, "Take off the grave clothes and let him go." So that's how Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead. But as I said in the beginning, everything, every single act, every single word, every little thing that he did had a purpose. And what's the purpose behind this passage? What was the message that Jesus was trying to teach us? There is a practical message, and there is a psychological message behind this. The message of Christ is always in layers. The deeper we go, the more evolved we become. And not the other way around. The more evolved we become, the deeper we can go. The deeper we go on his message, trying to understand and trying to get the essence of his message, more evolved we'll become. Because, as he said, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. And no one goes to God but through me. So if we want to evolve, we gotta go deeper on his teachings. We gotta go deeper on what the message that he has, so we can evolve, and then through him we can reach God. So we gotta be working on this as layer by layer, as every time that we read the passage, there's something else out there that we needed to understand. The very first impression that we have when we read this passage is that Jesus just was someone that could revoke God's laws. And why I'm saying that? Because nowadays we can understand, and science has proven to us, that when someone is dead, it starts the decomposition of this body. And the body starts to decompose. We get it again, all of the materials that we have in our body gotta go back to earth, gotta go back to the basic elements that we have on earth. So if someone already is dead for 4 days and the decomposition already started, how come Jesus can revoke that God's law? As we understand and as we start to study, we see that God is unique, and one of the most important characteristics of God, he's immutable. He doesn't change. God doesn't change. God is God forever. And God will be God forever. As God is perfect, his laws and what he had created, there is no need for changings. Whatever God has done, it has done on the maximum and the absolute concept of purity, love, and justice. So if we have a law of nature that tells us when a body starts to decompose, it gotta go back to the basic elements, no one can revoke his laws. Because God's laws, it's valid for the entire universe, not just for Earth, not just for the solar system, not just for the Milky Way. God's laws is valid for all over the entire universe. Should I get closer? Better?
No, just because it was in front of your face.
Oh, okay, thank you. Not a problem. So nothing on God's laws needs to be changed, not even by Jesus. No one has the power to revoke something that God has said, created, or done. What Jesus did over here, he showed it to us that he has more power and more knowledge than does us. But not because he was the chosen one by God, because he earned that. Because he knew that. Because he has been Jesus and has been the creator of this earth for the last 4 billion years. He has followed up with us since the earth was created. But not because he was the chosen one, because he earned it. Because again, let's understand the work of God behind of that. We all understand and we all accept that we are all sons and daughters of the same God, created by the same way, by the same principles, and by the same rules. And we also understand that Jesus and the God is the perception or is the reflection of the most pure degree of love and justice. Nothing can be more just than God. If God is just, and he represents the purest degree of the justice, how come he would give some power to someone like Jesus to revoke his own laws and not give it to me? Just because I'm shorty and fatty? Just because I love too much chocolate and Jesus didn't? He has more healthy kind of diet or something like that? Why he would be giving more power to Jesus than to me? It doesn't make sense. If God is all power, all love, and all justice, all of us, we gotta have the same chances, the same power, and the same capacity. And Jesus told us, you are God, and you can do the same things that I do, and even more. If he had told us that, that's because he knew we had a long way ahead of us to be developing ourselves and to be improving ourselves. And one day we'll be able to do the things on the same way that he did. Not because he was the chosen one by God, but because he knew how to do it and how to respect God's laws. So making this kind of a clarification, which is important, then we're going to pass to the practical teachings that we have. The very practical teachings that Jesus brought to us is, there is a few things that you guys don't understand yet, but they are doable. You guys will be able to do in the near future if you evolve, if you understand my teachings, and if you come through me to understand God's laws. That was the first practical teachings. You are God, you can do the same things as I do, but in the near future. The second practical teachings, there is more things beyond the science that you guys don't understand yet, but you will get there. What happened to Lazarus? Probably he was in a lethargic state. Probably he was just sleeping. Probably he was in a coma state. He was not dead. Because if he was dead, there was no way that even Jesus could bring him back to life. Not even God could bring him back to life. Because God wouldn't break his own laws towards anyone. No matter how important, how pure, whoever the guy is. God is not going to be breaking his own laws towards that. So this is the first practical teachings. There is much more out there that we needed to understand, that we needed to read, that we need to study, that we needed to incorporate in our lives so we can understand it much better and we can become someday, someone like Jesus. We're going to be doing that. No questions, no doubts about it. I think that I had said this here before in the other center. We're going to be like Jesus one day. The only difference between Jesus and us, I would say that Jesus is a little bit older than us. A few billion years maybe. That's all. He has more experience. He has gone through much more things than we had. He had chosen a different pathway for himself. But us and Jesus, we were created by the same God, with the same power, with the same capability. One day we will do the same things as Jesus said. Well, that's the practical teachings. What about the psychological teachings that we have? What is the underlaid message that we have? What is under this layer of just like on the onions? Now we're going to be taking those layers of the onions out. What is out there? And when we take those layers out of the onion, the more you go deeper, the onion becomes more tasty and more soft. It becomes more palatable. You go understand it deeper and deeper what you have down there. What do we have behind this message? What is hiding over here that in a first glimpse we didn't pay attention or we don't catch on the first way? There's quite a few things that I would like to share with you guys today. The very first one is, so the sister sent word to Jesus, Lord, the one you love is sick. What is the message over here? Well, that's because I'm Jesus' friend, that I share of his intimacy, that I'm not going to go through problems, and struggles, and issues on my life. Even Jesus' friends had problems, had issues, have a few things that they needed to deal with. It's not because I'm a friend of Jesus, that I'm a very close friend of Him, that I'm not going to suffer, that I'm not going to have to face at some time during my lifetime some problems, a little bit more difficulties. The only way that it makes me easier, because I'm a very close friend of Jesus, I know how to find a way out of that, on an easy way. But He's not avoiding any kind of problems that we might have. Even the ones that He loved suffered. Even the ones that He had a very close contact had some problems and struggles and issues. And why was that? Why Jesus would be being so mad with His friends like that? Because if He would be avoiding any kind of pain, probably we wouldn't be listening and learning the lessons that we needed to learn. When we find out that something is wrong with our body, how do I find out that I eat too many chocolate on the night before? When I wake up in the next morning with a stomach ache, something, I'm not feeling good, maybe I ate too much chocolate the last night, maybe I have to avoid this kind of behavior. So that tells me that I have to go to the doctor and I have to change something that I'm doing wrong. That's exactly the same thing when we have the pain of life in our lives. That's a wake-up call that something is not quite right and we need to change something in our lives. So if Jesus would be avoiding or kind of blocking the pain in our lives, we wouldn't be learning. We wouldn't be getting this wake-up call that something needs to be changed, something needs to be done about ourselves. So no matter if you were friends or very close, dear friends of Jesus, pain will always come towards us. Pain, it's mandatory in our life. Suffering is optional. Why pain is mandatory? Because pain is the tool that the spirituality have to wake us up about something that is not quite right. But how we deal with the pain, that's our choice of suffering or not suffering. So that's a first psychological message that we have over there. So the second is, when He heard this, Jesus said, the sickness will not end in death. No, it is for God's glory, so God's Son may be glorified through it. So the second message is, He knew exactly what is going on, and He knew that that moment was the best moment to all of them around Him. Not just for Lazarus' sisters, but for Lazarus himself, for him, for the gospel, for all the disciples that were walking with Him. He knew exactly that moment was the most perfect moment for that to be happening. So when we have the struggles and the problems in our lives, that's exactly the best moment to be facing them, because we are prepared for that. And because the lesson that we have to take out of that moment will help us to be a better person in the future. So when He heard that Lazarus was sick, He stayed where he was for 2 more days. God's timing, it's God's timing. It's not postponed, and it's not anticipated just because we want it. But Jesus, the one who we love, is sick. It's about to die. And He stayed where He was for 2 more days. Because it wasn't the right time for Him to go and rescue him out. Lazarus and everyone around him would have still to have some messages and lessons to take out of that situation. So sometimes what happens to us when we are in a struggle, when we have a problem which is bothering us very much, we want a solution right away. Okay, I ate too much chocolate yesterday. That chocolate mousse pie that I had was unbelievably good, but it hurts me too much today. I have this pain on my stomach. I need to do this to get away. But if it goes away very fast, I don't pay attention to that pain. So I'm going to do that again. I'm going to have a chocolate pie again tonight, and probably I would have a bigger piece. Because if I'm going to suffer, let me make it worth it. So let me have a big piece of this pie. So that's why this pain doesn't go out right away, because we have to learn out of that situation. And God's timing is perfect. The solution, the rescue, the matter or the door out of that situation will come, and it will open exactly when we are ready for that. And then besides that, or meanwhile, we develop our patience, our resignation, and we started to contact and reach out for God to ask for His help. Maybe when we become more humble, that we decided to ask for Jesus or for God's help a little faster or a little earlier, maybe we can get a help or a solution earlier from that. But again, God's timing, it's God's timing. And if we are going through some problems and struggles at this moment, that's because that's the most perfect moment for that. And we're going to be going through that as long as necessary for our own sake. The other message that we had is, after he had said this, he went out and he went to tell them, our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I'm going there to wake him up. Not waking him up just out of his lethargic sleep or for his coma state, but to wake him up for the true realities of life, the spiritual reality that we have in our lives. When we have problems, why most of us, I don't know about you guys, but I came to the Spirit Center through the pain, because I had a problem, because I was suffering with something. So that's when I decided to look for some answers, some rescue, and some help in my life. So that's when I decided to come over here. So when we come to this doctrine and we get in touch with the realities of the Spirit, the immortality of the spirits, our perspective changes. Then, so we are waking up out of this lethargic sleep that we have, or for this coma state that we've been living in our lives in the past incarnations, living on automatic mode. Just like we just come over here, we live, we die, we reincarnate, and we live and we die, reincarnate, doing and committing the same mistakes, doing the same wrongdoings that we ever have done. So what Jesus is doing over here, what He has done to Lazarus, and the message that He's sending out is to us, let's just wake up from this lethargic state of life that we are doing today. Let's try to look for a different perspective. Let's try to look into the concept of the immortality of the Spirit. What we are planning for ourselves for the future. If I want to reap some peaches in the future, I can be planting pineapple today. If I'm seeding pineapple today, I'm gonna be reaping pineapple in the future, with all those things that hurt your hands and these kind of things. But if you want that sweet, soft peach, you gotta be working on the seeding of these peaches today. Don't expect to be seeding pineapples and be collecting peaches in the future. It's not gonna happen. So we needed to wake up for a different state, for a different perspective in our lives. So then he told them plainly, Lazarus is dead, and for your sake, I'm glad I was not there, so that you may believe. But let us go to him. We still have the need of this phenomena. So what Jesus was doing over there, he was create a fact around him. So everyone could see and watch what he was doing. So everyone could believe on him. Do we still need those phenomena in our lives? Are we still looking for the phenomena itself, for the magical, for the unbelievable? Don't we have enough information in the point of our hands, on the point of our fingers today, to study our own selves and to make our own decisions and choices? For how long more are we going to be waking up by these phenomena? These mysterious things that happens, and we take knowledge through the media, through the TV, or through the newspaper, or through the internet. We don't need these anymore. Jesus was here 2,000 years ago. The message that he left behind him is still up there, and we cannot understand everything that he had written yet. Actually, not written, because he didn't written anything, but everything that was left written behind him. If you look into the gospel, there's a lot of passages and messages and phrases that when we read it for the first time, we don't pay attention, we don't understand. So I don't understand, so I'm just keeping reading forward and everything. But then you decide to come back and you start to reflect onto that phrase. See how much knowledge and information we can take out of that. We don't need the phenomena anymore. We don't need to be waking up every day for different things just to wake us up for a new reality. We already have that ahead of us. And new things will be brought to us when we are ready for that. Peace, the word peace, as all of these pageant girls that arose to these Miss Universe contest and pageant contest and everything, they all say, oh, what do you wish? I wish the word peace. How nice, how cute, how beautiful. What are you doing towards that? What is your contribution towards the word peace? Are you forgiving your neighbor? Are you forgiving your co-worker? Are you taking in consideration all the pressure that your boss has to bring the results and achieve the results that he has compromised himself to do it? Do you understand that your partner, wife or husband, sometimes has bad days as well, and he has his own problems as well, that on that day he can't be the support that you were looking for or that you need? What are you doing towards the word peace? The word peace starts with ourselves in first place, at our homes in a second place, with our neighborhood, with our streets, our community, our city, our state, our country, our planet. The word peace will not come towards the planet to us. The word peace will come from us towards the planet. What is our contribution to that? What are we expecting to reach that? The other message, it's something that blows my mind every time that I read this. It says, Lord, Martha said to Jesus, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But I know that even now, God will give you whatever you ask. I would like to have 0.5% of the faith of this woman. Half. Not even 1%. If I had 0.5% of this faith, I would be the happiest man in the world. If you had been here, my brother would not have died. But I know that even now, God will give you whatever you ask. That's the first message, the faith, the trust on God's pathway, on what God had planned to us. That's the first way to look into that. The second thing is, if you were here, my brother wouldn't have died. If you would be on his heart, he wouldn't have failed. If you were on his heart, he wouldn't be giving up. He wouldn't be going through this. If you were in his heart, nothing of this would be happening. So we have a message of faith of her sister, saying that if you were here, nothing of this would be gone. And as you are now here, I know that whatever you ask to God, it's going to happen. So that's a sign of faith. But also is saying, if Lazarus had incorporated your teachings into his heart, he wouldn't be going through this. That wouldn't be necessary. Are we bringing Jesus' teachings to our hearts? Are we bringing his message towards our words, our behavior, how we act and interact with other people around us? Are we trying to follow his footsteps as he told us, I'm the way, the truth, and the life, and no one goes through God but through me? Are we trying to do that on every and single aspects and attitude in our lives? If you are not, maybe that's an opportunity to review everything that we say, that we act, and how we position ourselves towards the facts of life. Maybe we needed to reevaluate what we were doing, what we are expecting from life and what we are expecting from ourselves on these situations. Maybe we have more to contribute than we have done in the past or in the last moments of our lives. But that's not a point that we should be worried, that we should be feeling bad or anything like that. If we are all here on this beautiful Sunday morning, that we are exchanging the pleasures of the sun and the enjoyment of the beach to be here looking for this small, fatty, shorty guy talking about, that's because we're looking for something better in our lives. We are already doing something different than the most of the people around us. We are worried with ourselves. We needed to evolve. We feel the need of involvement inside of us, and we are looking for something. We are looking for the answers. We are looking for something different that I have to be done, that I have to be incorporated with my attitudes, my behavior, my words, my teachings, whatever I'm doing to be better. So we are already behaving in a different way, in a different perspective. Because most of us, a few years ago, at this time, would be in the beach, enjoying a very nice glass of coconut water, cold coconut water, or something like that, looking for the boats, enjoying the sun and these kind of things. But no, today we're looking for answers, the true answers that we're going to fulfill our lives with the true joy and the true love and the true happiness that we've been looking for. So the message here is, if we were here, if your teachings would be on my heart, I wouldn't be going through these moments and through these struggles that I've been doing. The other is, Where have you laid him? He asked. Come and see, Lord, they replied. Jesus then, once more deeply moved, came to the tomb. It was a cave with a stone laid across the entrance. And the cave is the symbol of darkness. That's where we put ourselves. That's where we let ourselves be when we are not happy with life. We hide ourselves from the light. We put ourselves in a position that the light cannot reach us out. So sometimes in our lives, we put ourselves inside the cave and nothing can reach us out. We enter on a mental state of suffering, or the pity of ourselves, that no one loves me, God doesn't love me, God doesn't like me, Jesus is not my friend, oh life, oh dear, what a day, what is going on? Leaping Heart, do you guys remember that cartoon from a couple of years ago, right? It used to be in the TV a couple of years ago.
20 years ago.
No, a couple of years ago. Don't. A couple of years ago, not a couple of decades ago. Come on, guys. I'm not that old. I'm just 23. Come on. A couple of years ago, you were watching Leaping Heart, oh life, oh dear, what is going on? And we were all blaming about life, and we were putting ourselves in the cave. But should be life? Is life the one that we should be blaming? Is life the reason why we are doing all of this? Or is just this the consequences of our own choices on a very long distant past? Is life that we should be blaming? Should we be hiding ourselves in the cave, hiding ourselves from life? Or should we be reflecting on our own choices, which ultimately it's what guided us towards the situation that we are facing today? Everything that we have in our life, everything that we have around us today, it's a consequence of our choices. Good choices, not so good choices, but it's all consequences on what we have done to ourselves. Why should we be putting ourselves in the cave, hiding ourselves from life? We cannot forget ever, the light and the power of Jesus. There is a song from Roberto Carlos, which is a very famous singer in Brazil. I personally, it's not basically my taste, what I would be listening in my radio on my Pandora, but he has a music that says, Jesus the Savior, that says that one notch of your light through my uma telha quebrada, a broken tile through my ceiling will illuminate my life. This music for the Brazilians, if you guys have a chance and look in the internet, Jesus Salvador. That's not a music. That's a poem. That's something, if you look into the lyrics of that music, it's one of the most wonderful and sublime declaration of love towards Jesus that I ever seen. It's unbelievable, the lyrics of this music. But the message over here is the light that Jesus can bring it to us. So let's just come back a few billion years ago. When we started to understand and to study Spiritism, we, through the words of Kardec, which was the codifier of the Spiritism doctrine, and the enlightened and superior spirits brought to us that Jesus was the one in charge of the creation of the earth. He was the one who coordinated the entire process of the earth formation on the beginning, 5 billion years ago. According to these enlightened spirits, we cannot imagine or understand the power and the brightness of Jesus' light. According to them, Jesus is brighter than the sun. We cannot look into the sun on the distance that we are from here to the sun. We cannot look into that. We can be blinded by the light of the sun. Jesus is brighter than the sun. Why are we in the cave? Why are we putting ourselves inside the cave? We don't need that. Let's get out of the cave. Let's face the light. The light will shine upon us, and we're going to show to us that a few things in our lives are not quite right. But why we are so afraid of light? Because our ego will tell us that you have to change, and the ego doesn't want to change anything. Ego wants to stay as it is, because ego feels comfortable like that. Situations that I dominate, that I understand, that I know how to react. When we go to the light, we're going to be exposed for things that we don't feel comfortable. So that's why we try to private ourselves from the light. Let's just forget about it. Ego, it's our enemy. It's not our friend. Let's not be afraid to be exposed to the light. Let's just leave the cave. The other message that Jesus said to us is, take away the stone, he said. And these analyses and these understandings, these words that I have over here, it's not personally from me. That's part of a study from André Moreira, which is a very well-known doctor back in Brazil. He's the president of the Medical Spiritist Association in one of the states in Brazil. He studies the gospel in a very deeply way and everything. And André Moreira says that this passage, take away the stone, bring us the teachings which says the following. In Spiritism, we have the maximum, without charity there is no salvation. Jesus here ordered that the social, everyone around him, to collaborate so that the obstacle was removed. Without this help, Lazarus would not leave the cave. Remove the stone means the act of relief, very often indispensable for some people. André Luiz teaches us also that support to others is a source of support to ourselves. So let's pay attention on these three next steps. Take away the stone. Jesus went over there to rescue a friend that he loved, someone that he loved. He stayed in front. He himself did nothing. Let's imagine ourselves that we're going to rescue someone that we like it. When we got into the scene, what is our first reaction? We go towards that person to try to help him out, to take the person out of the cave, out of the problem, out of the struggle that person is going through in that moment. Jesus stood up and over there, and said, move the stone. Let the stone be moved away. He himself, he didn't do nothing. He gave the opportunity for the other people to collaborate. So everyone has the chance to be helping each other. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. Doing to the others what you'd like the others to do on you. Then he said, Lazarus, come out. Again, the rock was moved away. The entrance of the cave was open. What I would do, I would run inside of the cave to bring someone, get in my own arms and bring it back into the light. He said, Lazarus, come out. After removing the stone, Jesus did. What Jesus did? He runs to Lazarus? No. He gives a command voice, imperative, come out. Get out of the darkness that surrounded you and come to the light. Come to me. Jesus has not done for him what he has to do by his own efforts. He had to live by himself out of the cave. What he offered, the help and the rescue on the very first moment, which is sometimes in our lives, we're all of it going to need, and we're going to go through this. But at the next step, that go through him, go to him, he's not doing for something that we are responsible for that. Come to me. Jesus has not done for him what he has to do by their own efforts. Take the steps towards the light, seek awareness and resolution of the conflicts. But a few are those who are after the bailout receives, set their minds, reflects upon of these choices. Most of us, when we got the first rescue, we tended to be eating chocolate pie again at night, right? Lastly, and finally, Jesus said it to them, take off the grave clothes and let him go. It's important to think that Jesus not only took off the shade of Lazarus, or helped him to take the shade out of his face or all of his life, bringing him back to life. He asks us to be restored to freedom. Loose him and let him go, says the Lord. The fellow resuscitated should be unshackled to meet his own experiences. After we are rescued, you have a new teaching, you have a new lesson. Go out there and use your free will under a different perspective. I had taught you something different. I had shown you something new. Go out there and show me that you had learned what I had taught to you. Basically, that's the psychological interpretation of this passage. That's how Spiritism adds its value to this passage, bringing us to think about a different perspective on a different way. We are bringing more knowledge and more information so we can reflect upon these teachings and learn something different for our own lives. And if you look in all the passages and all the teachings that Jesus brought to us during his 3 years period on earth, every single one, there's other and other layers behind it, underneath it, that we haven't seen it, that we hadn't think about it, that we hadn't thought about it, or that we hadn't find the correct interpretation as well. That demands some time, that needs dedication, that needs a commitment for our life. So maybe today we can establish a new commitment to our lives to go even deeper on all the teachings that Jesus had brought to us. Thank you very, very much for your time and attention this morning. It was such a pleasure.